Hey everybody, welcome. Welcome to day 2 of Impact Days. It's awesome to see you all. I'm Michael Bracy with the Music Policy Forum and Youth on Record, and we just couldn't be happier to have this session today, all about radio play, how to get radio play, strategies around it, and these are 4 superstar presenters. So for those of you in the room, for those watching on video, we're so happy you're with us. I freaking love radio. Radio is a big part of my life. Radio, I'm of the generation where that's where I got my record collection. So it was the Sunday night 6-pack at midnight. They'd play all the new releases, and we'd stay up on Saturday night to listen to the 6 and tape them, maybe, and then go buy the records. I courted the woman who became my wife doing a college radio show together. We went from friend zone to dating by playing each other records. And music and radio it's been a big part of the policy work I've done for 25 years. To expand and protect non-commercial radio and to make sure that webcast tunes are legalized and all that good stuff. And radio is still a big part of our music consumption. Radio is always on our home, and we are lucky to be in Denver because you guys have one of the most robust and thriving radio ecosystems in the country. And I wish we had what you have here where I live in Washington, D.C., so we don't. So today's objectives are a couple things. This is really meant to be skill building for UMS artists and other interesting folks. We're going to talk about the different roles that these guests play in the radio ecosystem, working on behalf of artists or working at radio. We're then going to talk a little bit about some of the strategies around how you approach and how you work with these different organizations and individuals. And then we're going to have a heck of a lot of fun because we're going to play a bunch of music. And we're going to listen to a bunch of songs and talk about why they potentially are a good fit for different radio genres, different types of stations, things like that. So it's going to be fun and fast, and we want you guys to interrupt with questions, comments. This is not like we're up here, you're down there. Please jump in with anything at any point. So first we're going to go around and talk to these super awesome people about what they do and just give a little bit of framing. We're going to start with Emily White.
Thanks, Michael. I'm so happy to be here. My name's Emily White. I'm a founding partner at Collective Entertainment in New York. I'm the author of a couple books, most recently, How to Build a Sustainable Music Career and Collect All Revenue Streams. I also host the #1 music podcast globally of the same name, and I'm the founder of I Voted Festival.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alisha Sweeney. I work for Colorado Public Radio. They have an indie rock station that's inclusive of all music, actually. And our main mission is to make sure that we're celebrating Colorado music on the air every hour, too. And that's where I come in. The radio station's called Indie 1023, and I helped launch it about 11 years ago. And I'm so proud to be a part of that team. And I've sort of worked my career into becoming the local music director there because I've always worn my heart on my sleeve for the Colorado music community. And so it's one that I'm very passionate about with all genres. And so I'm always looking for exciting Colorado musicians that I can play on the radio and feature on the radio, which I do through something called Local 303, which is an hourly feature and spotlight of Colorado musicians. And I'm pretty much a Coloradan. I've been on the radio in Colorado ever since I was a teenager for 22 years at this point, which is pretty wild to think about. But when I was in high school, I used to listen to a station called KTCL, and it used to be based in my hometown, Fort Collins. And when I was in 8th or 9th grade, I went and interviewed this guy, Brett Saunders, who's now on KBCO, about becoming a radio DJ. And because I loved music so much and I loved discovering music on these great radio stations that we have in Colorado. And I'm just so proud to be a part of that story for the last 22 years, which is wild to say out loud. But that's my Cliff's Notes per se. Yeah, this is Christine.
Hi, I'm Christine Sainley. I work at a company called Cosign that's based in New York. We have an office in Chicago and then a couple other floaters, and I'm really lucky to be located here in Denver, which is such an amazing radio market. I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, which is not. So it took me getting to college and discovering college radio to realize how freaking awesome that medium is. And I fell in love with being on air and discovering new music and sharing that with people, and then decided I wanted to help do that with stations across the country. And so that's how I got into radio promotion. My company specifies in like the AAA and non-commercial radio formats. We do college radio and every genre you can imagine, and like alt specialty shows like with Alf here at KTCL. And it's a joy. I get to talk to programmers about music all day, every day, and give them reasons to get behind the artists that we're working with. And I couldn't imagine doing anything else, which is why I've been doing this for almost 2 decades now. So yeah, radio lifer here.
My name is Alf. I've been the host/producer of Locals Only on Channel 93.3 since 2003-ish, so about 20 years. I've been at the station for another 5 years on top of that. It is a 1-hour show Sunday nights where I just highlight local music. I also do some other stuff with local musicians. Here and there. I really won't get into that because it's kind of off the topic, but that's what I do, is I host the Locals Only show on Channel 93.3.
Awesome. Thank you. So we're going to start with Emily, and kind of the exercise we're going to go through is thinking about the strategy of why radio, right? So you're in a band, you're a solo artist, you've got a release coming out, you're thinking about your marketing strategy, what are the different kind of points you're trying to hit. The starting point really needs to be, is radio part of that? Should it be? And if so, how? So Emily, from a management standpoint, or if you don't have a manager, just thinking about these strategies, questions, and while we start at the foundation level, how can radio fit into the overall picture, and what are some of the sort of conceptual things you want to think about in the front end?
So I am not an A&R person. I am not a radio promo. I am a lot of things. I am not those things. I do not have those kind of ears. I just love the music that I love. And I've always built businesses around artists and taken care of fans a very close second. But folks, the other folks up here do have ears like this. And I certainly rely on brilliant radio promo people like Ray. Ray DiPietro is my favorite for AAA. I love Adam at Planetary Group. And, you can start with college radio. If this is something you can start on your own. So later we're going to listen to a track by Morning Bear, who's playing Underground Music Showcase. And I want to read a quote from him about how he's gotten played on your station by himself. He didn't hire a radio promo or anything like that. But my point is when we're working with artists, I take it to someone like Ray, I take it to someone like Adam, and I say, what do you think? What do you hear? I already love the artists, but they can hear, and like Adam is the best because Adam and Ray are the best because they'll give me really honest feedback. I love this, but it's not a fit. You should focus on sync. You should focus on marketing. You should focus on other things, touring, whatever. Or Adam will be like, this will crush at college. This won't work at AAA. So I really like college radio promo companies. If you reach out to Adam at Planetary, he'll write back. I love Powderfinger Promotions. I love the Syndicate. And, this is an area where you can hire a radio promoter in the college space for a pretty reasonable rate. Anywhere between like $500 to work a digital single up to $1,500. I know that's not nothing, but it's not spending $10,000 a month at country radio or pop radio. And I've had tons of artists, chart on the college charts or whatever, and they're often disappointed because it feels cool. It's like, oh, I'm number 5 or whatever, and on specialty charts, but then they don't really see it move the needle for other areas of their careers. But I also don't see artists, really digging in on some strategies to enhance that. So, if you are working with a radio promo company and they give you a radio, they will give you a report. If it's just sitting in your inbox, it's not doing you any good. And especially at these college stations, most of them don't have large listenership. They don't necessarily have large reach. I mean, there's big ones like KCRW and KEXP and famous stations like that. But I don't care if it's, I'm from Wisconsin originally, the University of Wisconsin up north or whatever, post that they're playing you, tag these stations, tag these DJs. They're more likely to follow you back, to pop it up in stories, And like at the college level, a lot of this is indirect. So you can't always quantify this if you're spending money on a radio campaign. But a lot of these college radio music directors go on to become sync reps and booking agents and professionals in the industry. And even if they don't, they are the tastemaker kids amongst their friends. So they're the ones posting about their music and sharing it. So big picture, I have not really focused on radio very much in my career. When it happens, I grab the email addresses of great folks like this who are playing our artists so we can continue to stay in touch and engage forever. But I'm more focused on kind of the big picture of building a business around the artist. Like I said, when radio happens, it's great. I definitely see ticket sales spike and things like that, you know, when there is airplay and there's even a hit song. But I've also seen those ticket sales go down when we come back and if the next song isn't a hit. So I guess what I'm trying to say is really maximize those radio reports. Try to build genuine relationships, as Morning Bear said in a quote to me, without being rude, you know, sharing your music, not emailing like every day or whatever. But, you know, I'm blown away by the radio scene here. And, you know, quickly, I worked at a alternative station in Boston when I was in college called WBCN, which is now rest in peace, unfortunately. But that was a large commercial alternative station that also had great local folks as well, you know, so you could go to WBCN events. In fact, you know, Michael, you may not know this, but one of the big things for the Dresden Dolls very early on was winning WBCN's Rock and Roll Rumble. And they got a lot of press, and they also got to play like BCN's big festival. So you can go to different local radio events and start to build up rapport. But again, collect that data, you know, like those email addresses. And when you are getting spins anywhere, I don't care if it's the biggest station in the world or, you know, the tiniest little internet station, post about it, tag those stations, and tag the DJs, because otherwise it's just kind of sitting in your inbox.
And I should have said at the outset, you know, today we're not really focusing, you know, Emily mentioned sort of like the scale of the investment to get on like big country radio. And we're not going to talk about that much today. There's a fantastic book by Marissa Moss called Her Country that talks about the structural barriers of how Nashville works. Related mostly to women in country music that I'd really recommend if that's something you're interested in. But today we're focusing much more on, you know, kind of local indies starting out non-com. And so, you know, to kind of continue the thought experiment, so, you know, Emily's working with the band. They've got a bunch of tracks that feel radio ready, that it feels like that's fitting into the marketing strategy. Emily's like, well, we're going to bring in the pros. So that's when you go to someone like Christine and her team. So Christine, could you talk about kind of when you guys come into it, when it's a fit, when it may not be a fit, and the types of things that you do as you're rolling out?
Yeah, absolutely. And Emily kind of touched on a couple of these things too. And something I'm really proud about my team at Cosign is like, we're always going to be very direct and straightforward with you. And we want to have super honest conversation so that we have the same goals and expectations and know that we're on the same page about what we're trying to achieve together. So if I do get an album in, even if I'm just like, I am going to cry to this record on my bedroom floor for like 4 days straight, it might not have that radio single in there for it, you know? So like, I'm gonna be very upfront about it. And there might be a home for it on some specialty shows or at college radio, which is a great jumping off point for sure. And I love kind of what you were talking about too, about those kids being tastemakers in their market, because they truly are. So it's like, in addition to a college radio campaign, you're kind of getting this like grassroots tastemaker campaign in it as well, because these kids live and breathe music all day, every day. And so like, they're going to tell their friends about it. They're going to, if you're coming through the market, they're going to grab as many of their pals to come out to your show because they're so excited about it. And so, you know, when we do get a record in, we share it with our entire team. Everyone takes a nice album deep dive. We discuss our thoughts. And as long as we're all on the same page and enthusiastic and want to take the project on, we'll do it. If the whole team isn't enthused, we're not going to do it, because we're not going to be the best partners for that project. You want to make sure that like you have someone that's doing your radio work for you that's just as passionate about what you're doing and is going to work just as hard for you as you would for yourself. So that's something that we're always going to be really honest with, and just, you get the vibe, like, you know, if somebody is going to be in your corner truly or not. So I think just be very mindful of that. And then as we're piecing together the campaigns, like, I find that radio single, and then based on that, we kind of determine which formats we're going to take it to. Is this going to be a hit at AAA and non-com? Is this more of an alt specialty thing? Does this have legs to go to alternative radio, where we need to bring another team on board? So it really just depends on the song. And one thing with radio too, I'm sure you've all heard, is like that 3-minute and 30-second marker. Like, that's the chef's kiss duration that every programmer is looking for. So I also have to be that person sometimes that's like, this 4.5-minute song is amazing. Radio's gonna want you to trim at least 45 seconds off of it. And so we'll work together with the artist to make sure that we're gonna create a radio edit that they still feel comfortable with and proud of, and they don't feel like it diminishes the artistic integrity of what they're trying to do with this music. And what I always try to do as well is like make sure we have the original album version available too, so that if there is a programmer that isn't as concerned about playing a lengthier track, they can get the full thing out there. And like KEXP is one of those stations. They're like, I only want a radio edit if it's for an FCC violation. Otherwise, like, we want to play the song as it was intended, which I love. And, you know, we know who those programmers are. So we'll have those conversations with the right people. But with some of the bigger AAAs and the commercial AAAs, like, they want that quick hit. They want that, 3-minute, 30-second piece of perfection that they can easily slide into all of their clocks, So you just have to be really mindful of that. And then, we send our radio reports out. We tell you what's happening week by week and kind of what our goals are moving forward. And, with every campaign, you're going to determine, is this like a charting campaign? Do we have like real chart goals here? Or is this more of like a let's lay a base kind of thing at radio? And one thing that's really helpful too is planning a tour based on when you're going to, like, where the radio action is actually happening. We have so many of our clients that do that, and they'll plan their tour 6 months after the radio campaign has happened, and they already know where the fans are. And then we can help get those stations involved for, like, presents or Song of the Day features and ticket giveaways, and, of course, in studio sessions, which is always so much fun to, like, get the artists in the station with the DJs that are playing their music and so excited about what they're doing. So there's so many different levels to what we do, and it's just such an honor that I get to do that with so many artists that I love and respect so much.
So I have 3 follow-ups. I'll just talk loud, but we have like 3 kind of specific follow-ups. What typically is the scale of a radio campaign of investment?
Investment? Oh, it totally depends. It can range anywhere from like $1,000 to $10,000 if you're doing like a really lengthy campaign that's going to have multiple singles that go. Because so often you'll have, especially with like a true AAA campaign, you'll have the advanced single that's our first radio hit that's going to be impacting at radio about 3 months before album release. Once the album comes, then we're switching to a second single. And that's something that's going to carry them further through the album campaign cycle, and is often something that's utilized too for like the touring facet of the campaign, which often happens months after we initially launch. So it's very big net.
Yeah. Is that money usually taken off the back end or like given up front?
Given up front. We do structure campaigns sometimes that can be, especially when we're doing an extension with a second single, that can be more of like a month-to-month type of situation. So like after 1 month has, surpassed, we can be like, listen, like, we still have motivation, we still have momentum here, like, let's keep going. Or if we feel like, oh, it's kind of starting to cool off, like, we should probably wrap now, but like if something else big bubbles up that would require getting back on board in like a full speed ahead type of way, we could always do that too. So kind of depends.
So how often do you turn down potential projects?
I would say probably about anywhere from 25 to 30% of the submissions that we get. Sometimes that's because sonically it's not a right fit, or we just don't feel like it's worth the spend. And sometimes it's because of scheduling. Like, there's been so much music coming out, especially these last few years. Like, the release schedule has just been insane. So there are often times where we're just operating at full capacity, where I'm just like, I love this, I would love to take this on, but like, I don't have room in my schedule for 3 or 4 months,
And I think if you all check out the Coastline website, the list of clients and projects we're working on is pretty extraordinary. I mean, it's the best of the best, and like, your reputation is your currency, right? I mean, so you've got to be very mindful. And then Emily, I'm just curious. It feels anecdotal. I don't know if I don't know what I'm talking about, but it seems like you're having a rise in back catalog, soundtrack placement, and all of a sudden you're circling back to radio because it might be a song that's 5 years old, but it's now on a Netflix show, and now it's getting traction. And that's not just Kate Bush, but is that something you're seeing with your clients, that you all of a sudden are like, oh, there's visibility because of a commercial or a movie, let's actually go back to radio, or is that very rare?
I mean, I hear what you're saying. I think when that happens, we would again do so organically. When we see stations picking up an old song, like I've consulted on Urge Overkill for the past 10 years. Like, their Neil Diamond cover from the Pulp Fiction soundtrack, gets played all the time. So we do try to like follow radio stations, grab that contact info. But again, you don't need to spend $1,000. You don't need to spend $10,000. There's a lot of organic ways to do this. And to be honest, most of my artists don't focus on radio campaigns. So to me, it's making the best art possible and then taking care of your fans. Like that's how you build and grow your career. I just take these records to folks like this that I trust because they're going to tell me with my friend Ray, who I mentioned that does, AAA radio promo, Daniel Glass does not make a decision on who he signs without Ray listening to it. And Ray has, I don't know if he stood on his desk, but pounded on his desk actually about the Lumineers being like, this is a hit, this is a hit, this is a hit. But it's just as important to me when Ray says this isn't going to work. And then I'm going to focus on other things. And, I know you are because you asked that question, but be mindful about these spends too, because if you don't write your songs, you don't get any royalties from radio, and that's something that Michael can speak to. And that's something we've tried for decades to try to change in Congress. Radio stations also have very strong lobbyists that lobby against that. So that's very frustrating. So if this isn't right for you, that's okay. I got a little off topic there. But just rely on experts like this because, they're going to tell you yep, this is perfect for radio. But, at I Voted Festival, we book the top trending artists in key states whose electoral margins are often decided by the size of a venue. What you all are listening to is not what's being played on the radio, But there's also tons of great radio artists too. So, if you're here, you're probably interested in radio and think, your music might be a fit for that. So, but to your original question, when we're getting spins, we try to grab email addresses of who's ever playing it, who's ever behind it, so we can keep them updated that Urge just put out a new record, So just that data collection piece I think is really important, whether it's an old song or a new song.
Nice. So let's turn to Alisha and then Alf, just talking about your role in the community, how you interface with artists and others, and just sort of what these people need to hear about what that exchange looks like.
Yeah, I feel like at Colorado Public Radio's Indie 102.3, being that we put Colorado music first in our mission statement, that I have a very privileged position in the community in that I just focus on what Colorado artists can I bring to the airwaves. And I'm constantly looking and seeking out bands, but there's also the submission process on our website. And KTCL has that too. And it's so great because we want to get to know you. We want to champion your music on the radio. And so we're always looking out for just a great song from you guys to share. So for me, I lay it all out on the website. When you go to the Local 303 page on our website, it's submit your music to us. And there's a list of things, and I know Alf knows this too, don't send a 10-minute song in. Share your story with us. Give us a link to your online presence. Don't expect that if you send me a YouTube link to your song that it's going to be played on the radio tomorrow. I don't have access to play YouTube on the radio and such. So I try to lay out on there, here's all the helpful hints that you need to submit your music to me, because I do take my role seriously, and I need all of your band information so that I can share that share that in our library, so I can properly archive your music so that you do get, that recognition and such. And then also I want to hear from you, what you think your best songs are. So on our website, we're submit 1 to 3 songs to us that you think is great for radio. If you don't have a cosign in your life that's telling you this is the radio single, think about your music and what song, if you were listening to the radio, would you want to turn it up and roll down the windows and be excited about, your mission statement almost of a song if you're sending something over. So be really mindful of that. I think that's a good start, right, Alf?
That is. The way I usually put it is if you don't have somebody there to tell you what your radio single is, what it comes down to is what do the people react to when you play live? What are the songs that say, what was that song? 'Cause that one that goes da 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 da. It's like, that means you've got a hook there that's hooked somebody in. That means you've got, that's your first step. You want that, because I've got 500 things I could say or 2 things I could say, so I don't really know where to start and end here. But what I want to say is I do locals only. That's 12 songs in an hour. Most people aren't familiar with the songs I'm playing. So after I play your unfamiliar song, I've got 11 more coming. And that might just crowd out yours. So you want something that sticks in their brain so that when I go on to the next one, they still have that song running around up there. And to me, that is your radio song. That's what you really want in there. As far as why radio, which was the question asked about half an hour ago, the people who listen to locals only, they live here. 99% of them do, anyway. They like local music. They're interested in people like you. This is a potential fan base for you. So, you basically, this is your target audience, really, especially when you're starting out as a local artist. So, this is something I would think you would want to kind of focus in on. And absolutely nothing against these people who are fantastic at what they do. This will cost you $0.00. It will cost you 1 email.
An efficient email.
A very efficient email, yes. I mean, and we can certainly get into that if you'd like, but I just need the damn song, and away we go.
Sorry to keep interrupting you.
That's fine.
Do you want a link to download that song? Do you want a huge WAV file?
This is how I work. I want an email, not a Facebook message. I don't want a tag on Twitter. Reason being is I listen to music once a week. Not because I don't like it that much, but because it helps to just have it all at once. And that's when I open up the folder in my email that just says locals, and all the emails are there. And I want an MP3. One, because again, they'll be there. And secondly, especially post-COVID, I do the whole show at home. I build it myself. I mix it myself. I need that thing there so I can make the show. And so I say that. It's send me an MP3. I mean, people will send me messages on Facebook, hey, I have a new song. And I'll just say, email me here, send me the MP3. And that's why, is I want that thing there so I can build the show. And what I've said, what I kind of touched on earlier is, what am I looking for? I'm looking for hooks. That's both for your benefit and for mine. Good hooks keep people listening to my show. I want people to keep listening to my show. I know that might sound weird. Maybe you can blow people's minds with what you can do on stage. That's fantastic. I don't want to scare away all my listeners, though. So save that for the end of your show where you blow everybody's mind. I'm not going to be able to do that on the radio show, most likely. The other thing I'm looking for, and again, this is somewhat basic, but I'll say it anyway, is good production. If the song is not produced well, the compression on radio is going to make it sound even worse. And that's going to scare away listeners, and that means it's going to scare away me. Most musicians I know are fairly cognizant of this, but a lot of home productions can be like that. But I'll just say that. If you email a song, I'll say, your production's a little wonky, and that might be a problem. I have absolutely no problem telling people that. And like I said, the other thing I was going to say kind of overall is I am, for better or for worse, the gatekeeper for locals only. It's just me. There's literally nobody else. And because of that, I'm the only one you're dealing with. I don't necessarily mind dealing with managers. I just think it's a little more efficient to deal with the artist straight on. And it just gets a little weird when I've had bands who I've worked with for several years, and then they have a manager, then the manager is dealing with me. It's suddenly like, yeah, now you can talk to my lawyer. It feels a little weird, but I get it. You hired them to do this, really, and so I get it. I don't freak out about it, but that's about it as far as that goes. What I do every week is I grab 10 bands that I've played before, and they get played again. If they have a new song, definitely I'll put that one in. If not, the one I played last time. The other 2 slots are for artists I have not played before. So every week I'm playing 2 artists brand new to me. Maybe they've been around for 3 years and I've just missed them. But I do that because I feel it's necessary. I feel we need to continue. I don't want to ossify the show. There's too much going on out there. And then really briefly, our station does 2 things every year that kind of opens up things from that Sunday night thing. The thing we're doing right now is a big gig. It's our big summer concert at Fiddler's Green. Every year for this, we have a thing for big gig locals only. We have bands submit 1 song. The on-air staff listens to everything. We vote on it. And the top 10 songs go to our listeners. The listeners listen. They vote on them. Top 5. The bands that come in 2nd through 5 play a locals-only stage on the green at Big Gig. And the band that comes in first opens the main stage at Big Gig. So it's, as a couple of the bands have said, it says, my last stage was this big, and now it's much larger than my apartment. It's a nice big step, and it's a nice way to get yourself a lot more fans. The other one is Hometown for the Holidays. I think this guy over here has a little something he might want to be able to say about that. Somewhat similar. We ask bands to send us 1 song. The listening group is much bigger. It's not just the on-air staff. It's also writers for Westward and Denver Post. It's people who run the venues. It's people who work at the blasting room. It's people in the scene, you might say. We listen to the songs. We vote on them. Top 10 for that gets into rotation at our station. So you're getting played 3-4 times a day on our station. And then, again, those songs go to our listeners to vote on. The top 3 play a concert for us. We do a little audience favorite thing. The winner on that gets $1,000. And the winner on the voting thing gets a bunch of other stuff. They get to record at Blasting Room. They get a photo session, a bunch of other stuff. So Big Gig and Hometown for the Holidays are fantastic kind of ways to kind of boost your career as well. I guess that's as good an advertisement as I can get, I guess. There you go.
I just wanted to add a couple things. If and when you're submitting music to a radio station, ALF prefers MP3s. Some people prefer the WAV files. So make sure you have a Dropbox link that has both versions so that programmer can grab whatever they need. And
No attachments, right?
don't do attach.
Attachment's fine for me. For you, okay. On MP3s, that's me.
MP3 is fine. Don't attach a WAV file. That's a dick move. And then in that folder too, I would recommend putting in like your little bio, your press photo, a lyric sheet. Like make sure you're always giving them clean music that they can play on air immediately. You want as few barriers to entry as possible. So if you have all of these assets ready to grab all in one place, then that person can play the song that night if they want to. And then, they have your press photo and they can pop that up on their IG or any of that. So just anything you can do to make it as easy for this DJ to support you, the better.
And I think just to build off of what both of you are saying, I mean, radio is in many ways the most intimate, sort of communications platform we have. And I love the way you describe your relationship with your listeners because, like, you have a bargain, right? The bargain is they're going to trust you to give an hour of their life to hear what you play, and you are beholden to them. And if you're not making that match, they're gone. And same with you. I mean, you're building, these relationships. And in this music economy, what's unique about radio is that the biggest currency is time. right? I mean, we can go build our own playlist and do it ourselves. We don't need that. We need, to have the trust in these platforms. So they're on the hook. And the other side of it is, and this was touched on before, they're incredibly deeply networked, right? So nobody, I mean, like one of my favorite radio stories always was, Marco Collins in 1992 discovering Beck by playing, Loser off of Bong Load Records, at the station he's working out in San Diego. And that's the thing. That's the thing you want, right? The dream is, who is the next band that I'm able to be part of helping find and connect and blow up? And Alf, when that happens with you, I know you're working with your team, the other programmers, and like, hey, this is happening. And I would, on the non-com side, something that's interesting, and I love what you guys are saying about, it could be the small stations. There's a new network called the Non-Com Music Alliance, which is 140 of the top non-commercial music-facing radio stations that now are working together as an organization. And so they go and hang out and have a conference. And I was there in Philly this year for the conference, and all the side conversations, like what's happening in Colorado, what's happening in Nebraska. I mean, that's how, you get to KXB, is because the word gets out, So being in those channels can be really, really, really valuable. I think the challenge, and I think this is part of what Emily's saying, is it's sort of buying a lottery ticket. You have very little control over it, and the bandwidth is so limited. So you've got all these other things that you can be doing. This can be a big piece of it, but you got to hedge a little bit.
Yeah, can I add?
Yeah, please.
Like I said, I think I've kind of made this point, but when one of these amazing radio people points out this is a hit for radio, we go wild with it, but no, it's just not something we really pay attention to because we're just focused on making great art. What I did want to say, because I've met a lot of artists over the past few years that are not signed up for ASCAP or BMI. If you do write your songs and you are getting airplay and these things are happening, you need to sign up with ASCAP or BMI and register your songs. And again, I've been stunned by how many songwriters I've met of all ages over the past few years who are not. And I asked why, because I do think when I was starting my career, not that ASCAP and BMI aren't as out there anymore, but they just were very present at conferences, and I felt like songwriters were signing up as teenagers. But what I'm hearing is, oh, I don't want to sign my publishing away. That's not what this is, okay? So ASCAP and BMI are going to pay you songwriting royalties when these folks play you on the radio. So please go sign up. These are government rates. This is nothing scary. You own your rights. And if you don't, I think this is really messed up personally, but if you don't register your songs within 2.5 years, you never get that money. So please make sure you do that. And then once you sign up with ASCAP or BMI, a lot of times songwriters think, oh, they cover my publishing, I'm all set. If you are just with ASCAP or BMI and not collecting on your music publishing, which is the royalties owed to you for your songwriting, you are missing out on money. So I'm a big advocate of song trust. Again, you own your rights. So just sign up for ASCAP or BMI and song trust, because once they start playing you, not only do you want to get the ASCAP and BMI royalties, but this is driving traffic back to streaming. This can help with sync and other publishing royalties. So again, sign up with ASCAP or BMI. It doesn't matter which one you go with. There are other PROs, but ASCAP or BMI are open to everyone. And then please sign up with Song Trust or another music publishing administrator. So especially if you are spending money on radio promo, you can start to get some of these royalties back.
And I just want to put a quick word in. Emily's book is the best thing I've read in 15 years. And she maps out literally every possible revenue stream that you could and should be taking advantage of. And that's hard for a lot of people to get their head around what all these streams are. And she even has these template spreadsheets that if you have a friend who's good at numbers, I couldn't do this myself, but a friend who's good at numbers, you can just sit down and spend 3 hours and just map out everything where you could and should be getting paid and make sure you've done it. Because you've already done the work, you've already got the music out in the world. A lot of times we just don't know how to collect on the different bits and pieces, and it starts to aggregate. So buy Emily's book. All right, we're going to do this. I think it's going to be super fun. You guys can be the judge if it's super fun or not. We are going to play a bunch of songs, and we're going to talk about why they work for radio, the story maybe behind the artist. I mean, just a little context. I don't know if we're playing songs from anybody in this room. We'll see. That would be super fun. But hopefully someone on video will see it. So these folks all selected some stuff, and I'm going to just hit shuffle, and then whoever selected it can do it. Let's see.
Boy, I hope I recognize
Oh, this is my choice. So this is a band called the Mañanas. And members of this band are also in Neoma. And this is one of our Latin bands in our community. The front man, so there's Brandon Apinco in it and Danny Pauta, who's from Ecuador. And they're writing this music based on their childhood love of the Strokes. So, you grow up in Ecuador. You hear music from all over. You love the Strokes, and this is them trying to be the Strokes. And this is just like a perfect like sloppy pop song for me, like a great indie rock track to add to the mix and to really like show a part of the music scene that maybe doesn't always make it to the radio. And I don't know. I just think it's a fun, exciting track from a Colorado band that, you may even know Neoma or, discovered her at UMS 2019 or something. Like I discovered her at UMS 2019 and invited her into the Indie 102.3 studio right after that. And this was her first radio. It was her first radio interview, and it was her first interview in English is what she had with me. And we practiced before we recorded it. And then they were like, "Oh, we also do this band called the Mañanas." And I was like, "Send me a song when you have it." And that was it.
So I love this in part because of the storytelling aspect, right?
Yeah.
I mean, having that narrative is so helpful. And it sounds like you got that sort of organically just by being in the community. I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't like a press pitch, like, look at our shtick, it's more just who they are, and right?
Yeah, and I felt like because, we had befriended this band and we had been telling the story of Neoma, then it was easy to tell the story of this extension of their group and just also to celebrate our Latin music community and just some of the beautiful music that's being made and maybe not something that you would think is like a Latin sounding song, but there it is.
And everybody chime in if you have questions or thoughts. Again, we don't need to be talking at you, so all right, let's try.
I loved that for what it's worth.
Isn't it great?
Yeah,
It's
really
so
good.
fun.
Yeah, I don't like them being kids listening to the Strokes, but we'll
Yeah.
fix that later.
All right, Dad.
All right, here's another one.
Yes, so that is Danielle Ponder, who I am absolutely obsessed with. This song is called The Only Way Out. She's going to be releasing her debut album on September 16th via Future Classic. She'll be at Globe Hall on August 15th if anyone wants to catch her here in Denver. And she's got another fascinating story. So she spent the majority of her adult life working as a public defender, and this was passion work she was really drawn to because her brother got just a shit deal by our judicial system with a stupid 3 strikes rule. And so that really called her to this work to really try to improve our judicial system that's just always been so broken. But music's always been in her heart and in her soul, and she decided to shift and make a leap and really go for it. And sonically, as you can hear, hell of a set of pipes on her. She really kind of walks that line between vintage and modern soul that I love so much. I think fans of Yola and similar artists will really, really respond to her music, but just the story too, man, just it kills me. And she's touring a bunch this summer. She's also featured on a Marcus Mumford song that's coming out, and doing a big run with Amos Lee. She's getting after it, and I'm a proud radio mom.
Is she getting play on the radio?
she is getting play on the radio right now. So she has broken the top 50 at non-commercial AAA radio already. And this was before her album was even announced. Like we had the 2 songs. We're starting to really develop her. And, we were talking about bringing songs here that like we think have a lot of radio potential and growth. And she's kind of like at that point where her star is really rising right now. People are paying attention. Some of like the more tastemaker stations are giving her some love. Indie 102.3 needs to get on this track immediately. I'm just saying. But yeah, she's building a cool story. She made her TV debut on Seth Meyers a couple months ago. So like really, really one to watch. And just the feedback I'm getting from programmers, the way she's reacting as a brand new artist is really exciting.
Is she on a label?
Future Classic.
And is Cosign helping her get on Seth Meyers, or is that something that her label is doing for those that don't know?
Yeah, for those that don't know, typically it's press that ends up pitching TV. But one thing that, will happen through these campaigns, it's a very like symbiotic relationship. Like they can use the success we're having at radio to make these pitches. I use the success that they have with getting TV placements or sync placements to get more radio airplay. So like the more things you have happening in different lanes just helps everything else continue to build to make this nice big full picture.
Let me add to that. That's a really great point. So I just had an artist named Culla who was self-booking a tour. I was like, grab that planetary radio report and all these venues you're pitching, be like, I've charted on whatever station in your market, like that's really, again, keep these emails short and to the point, but that's very powerful information when you're reaching out to venues.
Nice. All right. I was very happy to see this song recommended.
I guess we've had enough. Tried to make it last, but our heads in the clouds cannot shake the past. Only if it's born now. Can we see we did our best? All love expired. Left us to carry the dead. Keep your heart. I'll keep it
You just want to play the whole track.
I do.
So this is Colorado music, and you all know sitting in here, you're Colorado musicians. You've heard your music, most likely on the radio, and it's special. And you hear something like that, and you're like, "Is that Brandy Carlisle? Could that be, is this Angel Olsen? Is this El King?" No, it's Colorado musician Anna Morissette. She records as the Still Tide, and she's been like a hardworking artist for over a decade, probably like 15 or so years. Sort of started getting her due right before the pandemic. She signed to a record label. She was playing in a whole bunch of other bands. She also plays in a band called Blue Book, which go see them at UMS. But she's just one of those that, just great artists. You guys are making great music that deserves to be on the radio. I don't know why other, people across the country aren't playing it. It's like, that's a great song, and a great song deserves to live on the radio. She's a queer artist, which is, is part of her story as well. And she was supposed to go out on tour twice with this indie band called Strand of Oaks, but, COVID canceled the national tour twice over the last year and a half. But it's just like, you guys are making beautiful music. We are so lucky to play it on the radio, and we want to help you guys succeed. And she's been working hard for over a decade, and is just kind of like, pushing that rock up the hill and continuing to do it. And it's just, another beautiful song on our scene, another playing our festival. And again, like, I'm just so grateful for all of you making beautiful music. Yeah, what else we got? Oh, this is for Alf.
There's a renaissance on the rise of black skin and the high.
Yeah, that's artist name is Neptune, spelled with a 3 instead of an E at the beginning. Black Horse is the song title. You were talking about, well, you weren't really talking about it, kind of led into it about stories with these artists. And I do think one difference between like what you do and what I do is I think your listeners tend to be a little more intent when they're listening. Public radio, they tend to be a little more connected. My belief, rightly or wrongly, is our listeners tend to be a bit more around the passive side. They're driving, they're cleaning their house, they're whatever while they're listening. And because of that, I've adopted this way of listening to my music, which is I pull it up, I start listening to it, but I start doing something else. I literally do. It won't be anything like really involved, but it'll be like sorting through those emails that I haven't touched yet. Cleaning up the stuff on my desktop, whatever. Reason being is I am now listening to these songs the way I feel other people listening to my station will be listening to the songs, somewhat passively. I mean, I am keeping an ear out, but what I'm really hoping to do is I want you to drag me away from whatever I'm doing and focus on that song. And by the time we hit that chorus, I was staring at that screen going, it did exactly what it was supposed to do. It completely pulled my attention back away. And I said, okay, we got something here. This isn't just, okay, this will be okay for locals only. I said, we've got something here. Neptune will be here at Underground Music Showcase, by the way. So I'm not saying that every song has to do that, especially just to get on locals only. It has to be good, has to have good hooks and so forth. But if you can do that, I think you really have something special.
And not to get off our topic, but Emily, I'd just like to pick your brain a little bit, because I hear that song and I'm seeing montages, I'm seeing Indie on ESPN, I'm just seeing like everything. So like from a manager standpoint, how would you even think about like the 360, like what does that process even mean? So you've been given this.
Yeah. I mean, what stood out to me were the vocals. I'm like, I need to see that person live, so.
He will blow you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're right. There's definitely potential for sync. And, I wrote a free article 10 years ago that we still get emails about called How to Land a Sync Placement. So if you want to look that up, there's a lot of entry points into sync that anyone can enter into. But to me, it sounded like it's all about live, and you just backed that up. So, I would definitely really focus on the live strategy there.
Is this helpful? Is this interesting? Are we doing okay?
I just have a comment about Neptune because I've seen him live, or I've seen them live. It's amazing. It's that first. Wait, who is that? Oh.
And
I just want to co-sign. That's all.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Well, and he's amazing because, like, I remember first hearing him when he had barely put out one single, and I remember writing him, and then within a couple months, he was like, "Oh, I have management now." So it's one of those artists that right away someone heard it, and like, the moment I heard it, like, White Pony was his first single, and he actually had another song that was very Kendrick Lamar-esque, and I don't know what, Pharaoh. Anyways, he like wrote me back and he's like, now I'm signing. I have a manager now, and and then all these, and then Slaybell's so impressed with him that then Slaybell's is like, we're gonna take you on our national tour, and stuff like that. And that's just something that's exciting. Again, as someone that's passionate about your music, and like we want to tell your stories and we want to share your songs on the radio, and we're very excited for all of you, and what a cool story for Neptune to just him being down in the dumps at the beginning of pandemic, and thinking he's going to take his life, to then starting to make music and finding a collaboration with this Rusty Steve guy, and they've made magic together. Again, sorry, public radio storyteller. You guys know.
No, it's both.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic song and a fantastic story.
Yeah.
And that's ideal.
Absolutely.
Combination
Right.
there. Yeah.
It is. And also, sometimes if like KTCL isn't playing your song, or if it just hasn't clicked like on KTCL or with Indie 102.3 yet, that doesn't mean that there's no place to hear your music on the radio. Like how Emily was inferring to, find some of those smaller stations. Like sometimes like if maybe you're an electronic music artist and you've sent me like a 5-minute electronic song, it might not live on Indie 102.3 for the attention span of what we think our listeners may listen to, but it could live late at night on KGNU. And that radio spin is still a spin and it's still special. Or like if you're a classical musician or sending me like maybe some death metal song, it might not be the right fit in that moment on our stations, but there are stations that will give you that love. And also being true to your audience. And sometimes when we're creative people, it's hard to put ourselves out there, but being brave enough to just send your music to us and even create a community for yourself online, it just does work wonders, and it will grow your fan base. So yeah.
Again, like I feel like I'm the person, like probably 99% of music doesn't like fit on radio. So again, like you just said this, like be true to your heart, your soul. Like that's what's, that authenticity is what's going to connect with people. But also like you could start a podcast. You can start your own show, and I've seen plenty of artists to do that, whether, they feel like social media isn't a deep enough connection, or the artist Cullah I mentioned before, like goes through his track. He has 15 albums and he goes through his tracks and talks about what it's about. And then this isn't really related to radio, but also invites on guests that he wants to get to know and that he's interested in. So he hasn't necessarily done this, but say he's interested in radio, he would invite one of you all on, So again, you can start your own radio show through a podcast as well.
Sorry, did you have a question, Britta?
I was just wondering what recommendation you had for hip hop and rappers who don't have necessarily always clean music, but what you would recommend for that genre of music to help get radio play.
Hire somebody to make a clean edit for you. There's also Safe Harbor, and a lot of hip hop shows happen after those hours, so you can play explicit material, but no one wants to mess around with the FCC and the violations that come with it. So if you don't have a clean, like just make sure you get the instrumentals, and then you can hire someone that can help you make a clean edit.
It tends not to be too difficult to make an edit. You usually can find somebody who can do it for you, especially if you have the tracks. It's really kind of simple. What it generally comes down to, if you drop the F-bomb twice, it's not that difficult to do. If it's in the chorus 5 times, pick a different song, it's, because otherwise it'll just sound like you're stuttering rather than we actually did any clean editing on that. And do keep I would kind of keep in mind that if that might not be your radio song, and that's fine. That might be the one that totally kills live on stage. And that's the one that everyone blasts in their car. And that's fantastic, but, you'll probably have another song that's better for us.
The third time on the clean edit thing, that should be part of the production process. You shouldn't have to go out and hire someone else. Like that's totally standard. Remind your producer that if they don't know that, point out you might need a radio edit. You definitely need clean versions. I do feel like most artists know this. And also make sure your music is mastered, because that's what Elf was talking about, to make sure it's loud enough to be on par with the other songs that these folks are playing.
I'm sorry. And just to touch base on what she was saying about the FCC, you don't want to be in trouble with the FCC. I don't know what the current fine is, but I know at one point it was $25,000, and the DJ is on the hook for half of that. So I just want to casually think, well, can't you just play it? $12,500. That is my response to that. So no. And I lose my job.
Can't get to that dump button fast enough sometimes. And also just in regards to specific music styles, if you don't have something that's maybe going to work in regular rotation, which is during the primary day parts of the day, every station has specialty shows, and it will require a little bit of digging, but there are shows like Especial that focus on Latin music. There are stations that have shows that focus only on the LGBTQIA community. Find those shows, submit your music, because they're always looking for fresh stuff that maybe has more of a niche listenership, but it still has a home.
Well, that's such a good point too, and you all would know better about this as far as promotions go, but is it Black History Month? Is it Pride Month? Are there things that you can submit and point out it's June or it's February or whatever to help you all?
And in that same breath, remind them that they can play Black music all year round. They can play queer music all year round, and this could just be a starting off point so that they can keep playing you till December. I love having these
A couple more
conversations.
songs. This is working. Yeah. Good.
This is another one of mine. I did 2 slow ones. Define yours. That's another one of mine. That's The Sacred Souls. They're going to be releasing their debut album next month on Daptone Records. And Daptone's kind of had a quieter moment since we lost our beloved Sharon and Charles, combining their names there. And I'm excited to have them back and to found this young outfit, Southern California group. They're primarily a trio. They tour as a 7-piece. And this is just that like sweet California soul. If anyone like Leon Bridges or like the freaking Temptations, Curtis Harding, like this is totally going to be your shit. It's just feel good. It's smooth. It's groovy. And like, well, it doesn't have a lot of tempo to it, which is something that a lot of radio programmers look for. It's instantly recognizable. This just feels like an instant classic. And it's something that, we just serviced to radio a couple weeks ago and is already getting picked up by all of the big non-coms like FUV, KXT in Dallas, starting to get spins at XPN in Philadelphia. So like it's something that's really resonating, and like this style of soul music is just so many programmers' bread and butter. You can fit this into any set, and I just adore it.
I'll just say real quick, it's easy to start falling into a trap of hearing some songs and thinking my songs have to sound like that, and that's the sort of song that's like, this will be a perfect breath of fresh air with these other up-tempo songs. It kind of lets you reset the palette, as it will. So don't feel like when you listen to the radio or so forth, it's like, well, I don't sound like this band, or like these other bands that they tend to play a lot. That's fine. I mean, because you go back 5 years and the songs were completely different. They sounded completely different. The radio shifts a lot, even within a station. So don't freak out about that. Don't feel like you have to follow those, this is the template. No, it isn't. It never is. So.
Yeah, I have to. I mean, I kind of already touched on this, but it's like, are you writing the music? Are you writing and recording the music for radio or for yourself? And for your fans. And again, like what's authentic, what's true, that's what's going to connect with people. And everything that I've heard played sounds incredibly authentic. It doesn't sound like someone was like, I'm going to get on this show, So like, just please keep that in mind. I hear that too often from artists like, oh, I wrote this. I think it would be perfect for this label, or even like, I was talking to Imogen Heap about this on my podcast. Like when artists send us their music and want our feedback, and again, we're not radio promo people. That's different. Those are specific ears. I'm like, who cares what I think? Like, is this the reflection of your soul and spirit in your art? Like, to me, that's what's most important. Is this like what you have as your vision for what you want to put out in the world? Not, are you trying to fit into some other box? Because to me, that just comes off as, inauthentic, and fans tend to see through that.
All right, we get 2 more.
Cool. Yeah. So this is an artist called Morning Bear. And as I mentioned at I Voted Festival, we are a totally data-driven event. So we book the top trending artists in key states whose electoral margins are often decided by the size of a venue. Morning Bear was one of those artists. His music has really been going off on Spotify. We're seeing very high engagement numbers on Instagram. He's playing UMS. I just had him on the I Voted Festival podcast and was very blown away by his story. He ended up in Colorado because I can't recall if it was his grandfather or great grandfather was in a Japanese internment camp here. But his family's here now, and he loves Colorado. And again, this is someone who's never hired a radio promo person. So I pulled out my notes if I can read my own handwriting. Actually, before I do that, I said, "What track do you want me to play?" And he's like, "Well, not this song," but he's like, "This other song is what I'm most proud of, but I guess I should share like what got, radio play." And so what he said was, the most airplay I received was with Indie 1023 because I'd been so involved with the local scene and built a rapport with DJs. And again, like, John is not an obnoxious in-your-face person. It sounds like he was going to shows, he was building genuine relationships, he was connecting with people. And he added, writing to indie and college stations made a difference. As long as you keep knocking on doors and not being rude, they'll at least listen. And if they like it, they're going to play it. So again, I thought that was a really great organic approach to someone that's having success. We're seeing those numbers. We're booking this artist for a festival. And again, he was so enthusiastic about UMS. That's how I knew he was playing. He was like, "Oh, it's just the best. They treat you so well, and it's so well curated." So that's definitely someone I wanted to share today.
Nice. Let's do the flip side. So he's saying be nice. What happens if people are not nice?
I'll answer that. My general rule is, well, I'll tell you the story. Is I do have a shit list, and it's very, very short. You have to really work hard to get on my shit list, and if you apologize, you're off. So I mean, you really do have to work hard. I will tell you the story. It's in the past, and it's not really a thing anymore. Bands used to do the street team thing all the time, and so they'd say, "Oh, we're gonna get our street team to like bother Alf and say you got to play us all the time," and blah blah. And it was so obvious when that would happen because like suddenly like at 3:00 you get 50 emails from random people. You need to play this band. It's like, well, how random that they all emailed me at 3:00. And so I'd hit them up, and I'd always just say, "Look, don't do this." And their response was, "They're our fans. We're not in charge." And I was like, "Dude, okay, no, you're done." And then they kind of badmouthed me on their Facebook page or whatever, and the band is no longer together. I'll just put it that way. Yeah, you have to work hard, really, to really get on my bad side. Generally, just if you have any questions, just say, "Hey, I was wondering," not "What the fuck, man?" It's not difficult, really. Pretend you're working in, customer service or something. Just find a nice way to ask questions, and I'd like to think we're decent people, and we don't have any problem giving you the information you want or need. So.
This is kind of obvious, but I have a personal rule to only post positive things on the internet. So definitely don't go trashing industry people or anyone. That's not going to get you anywhere. How do you feel, though, like when you are playing someone, is it okay if an artist says, "Hey, can you tweet at this DJ or this station thanking them," being like, "Oh, we loved hearing that"? Do you feel differently about that? Because you've already played them.
I don't mind the band saying that, certainly. I don't like them suggesting that their fans say that, because then my entire notifications start being filled up with, "Oh, thanks for playing such and such band," and that's okay, and then it becomes kind of a competition. Sure. Everyone else starts doing the, "Oh, apparently this is what we do," and I don't want my email box filled with thank yous or
media.
Same thing,
I hear you,
notifications.
But,
And that's me.
Do you not want that engagement and fans being driven to your show? I'm just curious.
My response to that is I don't know if that brings anybody to my show necessarily. I think if there, my belief is that sort of thing kind of stays within the social media. It does not say, well, I guess I'll start listening to this radio station now. Especially in my case with Locals Only, I have 1 hour once a week. So even the best songs, the best bands are on once every 3 months. So even if they say, wow, Alpha's playing this, this song, this band, I should start listening. Their chances of sticking around just to hear that song after 3 months, they've probably stopped by now. And again, that's me. I have a very kind of specific set of rules.
And it's
So
totally different from me. Like, I'll tell, like, Shama Noel this month is one of our featured artists. And, I'm like, oh, please tag me when you're on social media. And I want to share that with you. And I don't mind, like, we had our local 303 meetup the other night. Then Shama was there. And then people that were there were tagging him and then tagging me. And, then I'll reshare that on social media just to keep that community or conversation going. So yeah, it is totally different. And I want to hear from, like, Destino is here and Shama Noel, like, you guys that have been featured on the radio, you like telling your, like, I know, like, when I give you your onboarding email for being in the local 303, I'll be like, yeah, tag us, let people know you can hear us all month. Has that been helpful for you guys? I'm curious to learn from you guys.
I think so, yeah. I'd say that, if you tag somebody on Instagram stories and they share their stories, you automatically get more engagement, more.
yeah, I just want to make it clear. I certainly don't mind the thank yous.
Yeah.
And being tagged and that sort of thing.
But the random listen to my music, it's lost on us.
No, it's more trying to get the listeners
The fans.
to jump onto that bandwagon.
Yeah.
Then it just becomes noise to me. And I think that's true of everybody.
Yeah.
The thank yous are fantastic, certainly.
Yeah. How about you, Shama? Like,
Yeah, it makes people feel like they're a part of something.
Yeah.
So,
I just want to call you out and make you
Yeah.
listen to his song.
Any other kind of questions, things we didn't get to today, reactions,
Does he have one more song?
feelings? We do have one more song.
We're all radio experts. We know this now.
Oh, I hope not.
All right, let's see. We've got at least one more song. Let's see. Is this one you're thinking of?
Oh, this is Sudan Archives. This is one of my favorite songs.
It's so good.
If I got back hair, hope I roll it on back on that time like way before. If I wear it straight, would you like me more? Like those girls on front covers. Now hair, make it straight into longer. Stay here, stay straight, do we feel the shame? By the curls, waves, and natural legs. Curls, waves, and natural legs. Okay, one time if I roll it on. Am I good enough? Am I good enough? About time I embrace myself and soul. Time I be myself and soul.
As Alisha said, that was Sudan Archives' Selfish Soul from her upcoming sophomore album, Natural Brown Prom Queen, which is going to be the follow-up to her 2019 debut, Athena. And she's had, like, quite a meteoric rise. Like, she had a couple singles, had an EP, got some great NPR love, killed it with her debut album, has been touring extensively, like went on the road with Tame Impala. It's been a long time coming to finally have this album coming, and I'm so thrilled about it. And this song is another one of those like perfect combinations. Like you've got the right radio song, and you also have a great story behind it. Like you have those claps in there, you get her violin kicking in, and then the song is about like a celebration of black hair in all ways, shapes, and forms. And she was really like inspired by an India Ari song from a little while back that talked about that as well. And just she's had kind of a troubled relationship with her black hair, and now she's like, I want to celebrate it in whatever form it is. And so if you watch the music video, just like her and a bunch of her friends just like living their best lives in all of their natural beauty, and it's incredible. Indie 1023 is playing the crap out of the song. Thank you so much. You can also hear it on like the Colorado Sound, and it's one of those that's like just totally defying all genres. Like I'm seeing all different types of stations pick up on this song, from urban to AAA to some like alt specialty shows like Alf over here. Thank you so much. Not gonna forget you. So yeah, it's just it fits everybody.
Will commercial radio play this? Because, like, I'm doing a radio thing next month, and I suggested this song for the AAA conference next week. And I'm like, everybody's listening and saying, Break My Soul by Beyonce is Song of Summer, and that's being played on radio everywhere. Is this something that commercial radio is playing?
Not really yet. There's public radio. I have like a handful of commercial AAAs that are dipping their toe in the water. We will get there. But this is another one of those, like, it's building. This is our second single that we sent out. She had another track, Homemaker, that will be on the album that was released as a standalone single earlier in the year. So we're kind of like converting people off of that track onto this new one right now. So it's exciting to see it build. She's already at number 28 on the non-commercial AAA radio charts, which is really exciting. She's playing UMS 750 showcase stage on Friday. Do not miss it. She is fucking incredible live. Glad this is not being aired on the radio right now. But yeah, that's big picture goals for sure. But always laying like a really nice base at non-commercial AAA. And when we have a lot of those like marquee stations on board, that the stations like Kink and KBCO like kind of look to when they're trying to expand their playlist a little bit and find something that's already had success in other key radio markets, it can work.
And so, like, for Coloradans that are here right now, that they have their projects, when they're thinking about sending me music or KXP or KTCL or something like that, like that was the second single from Sudan Archives, and it's more upbeat and everything. And that first one that you sent us, not as much, or that one to me is like the banger. What would you tell these folks here? Like, send your loudest track, or how did you choose to service that one second as opposed to first?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't get to plan the timeline for the album release, so I'll work with what I got. But since it had been so long since her last album, and there was the thing that happened, like, sending out Homemaker was a really great reintroduction to Sudan Archives. That's what she wanted to get out there. Like, there's a really dope video for that song as well. So kind of wanted to have that moment, and that's a song that they wanted to release ahead of all of these festival announcements that were happening. And then this song came, and then the title track came with the album announced. But this is the song we're focusing on now.
Do you mind defining AAA? Because I don't think we've done that.
Oh, yeah. It stands for Adult Album Alternative. And so it's one of... And Indie 1023 and the Colorado Sound. Yeah, so KBCO is like the commercial contingent of that. And then we have the non-commercial ones as well. But it's technically a rock format. But the beauty of it is that it's essentially genreless. You can play a hip-hop track. You can play a more electronic track. You can play soul, rock, literally anything in between. And you can go multiple singles deep, which is why the album is in there, because they really want to like develop a relationship with this artist and their artists with their listeners. So they don't want you to just know one song from their catalog. They want to support album after album. And in a perfect world, multiple tracks on an album, but considering the traffic out there right now, like second singles in general are just tough.
We do have one last song. You're right off.
One more.
Is this another song? Yeah.
Me slowly turning my head this way. Okay, name of that band is Neon the Bishop, and if you like that song, there's a guy over here who did a little something with it. That's another song that kind of pulled me in. Not quite as dramatic as Neptune's song, but what I really liked about it is I heard the beginning, I'm like, and I don't know if this is true of you, but you hear the first 2 or 3 seconds and you start thinking how the rest of it's going to sound. And that kind of took a turn on me. I was not expecting the guitars to kick in there. I was not, I was waiting for the huge drop. And instead it kind of went, oh, we're going to go over this way. And that was very intriguing to me. I really liked that. It was another song that grabbed my attention, but didn't do it in the same way as all the other ones. And that was that the hometown winner, right? Yeah, that won hometown for the holidays for 2021. And I think it stuck with me. And the reason I wanted to put that in there isn't just because it's indicative of what I like. It's also kind of pointing out that the rules aren't really rules. It is very kind of flexible. It doesn't have to be a certain way. And I think that works really well. So don't feel like it's got to be a certain way. If you want to throw in the mandolin or glockenspiel or whatever the heck, or tuba, go for it. Absolutely. Try it. Maybe it'll suck. That's fine. You found out it sucked. Then it won't be in the back of your brain every night. I really should have put the tuba in there. So that was that song.
It's such a perfect like KTC, like when I think of KTCL and growing up and listening to KTCL, you could listen to that and be like, oh, is that 21 Pilots? Or, like that, it comes to mind where it's like, this is a hit, just as someone that would hear 21 Pilots would think that that's a hit or whatever. It fits right in there. And that's what I think, again, like with your guys' music that you're creating, it's so good and it stands up so well against the, like you could play that all day long on KTCL and people would be shocked if the DJ came on afterward and was like, that's music made right here in Denver, Colorado, because the production on it is so gorgeous and it's such a beautiful song. And like, I knew it, that one, like, and your guys' music blew my boss away, who's like kind of a commercial radio guy, where he's like, holy heck, Alisha, this is another Colorado band. It's like, yeah, like our scene is incredible. And that's why it's so exciting. And that's why we love doing what we do, all genres. We want to celebrate you.
A real quick story. Our station jumped on the fray before anybody else. They were a local band who just sent in a song, and we decided to throw it in rotation. KBCO shares office space with us. They're in the same building. And one of my favorite stories is walking by the KBCO office during their music meeting, and the head of KBCO berating the on-air staff, like he said, what label put this out? And why didn't they service us with this? That's what you want. That's a really high compliment, is that he was upset that he was not serviced. Well, they're a local band. They're not signed anywhere yet, and it was, in a sense, that was kind of an old way of thinking, is like, if a song sounded like that, clearly you were signed to a label. And, it must have come through that channels. And I think slowly that's becoming at least an option, that maybe you're not signed to a big label or even a label at all when you sound like that necessarily. So.
Well, I think we're good. Any last things? I think we've said a lot, right? Questions? Any last questions as we wrap? Well, I just want to thank you guys. What a great conversation. I really enjoyed being a fly on the wall, just hearing your expertise, and I feel like I learned a lot. Thanks to people watching on video, and thanks for capturing this. Obviously, huge thanks to Youth on Record team, who've pulled together 2 pretty amazing Impact Days. I am so freaking excited for UMS.